Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in today's episode is going to be a little bit different. Again, moving a little bit more away from obviously the high risk plays and a bit more into long term plays. I'm going to be doing an overview of the recent news and stuff with Fantom token, what I think of it going forward, where's my position on it and stuff like that. Just before we jump into the video, I recently set up my own Telegram group. It's pretty much for announcements, different things I was sharing from different groups I'm involved in, and obviously sharing my videos in it. So make sure you check out the link in the description and subscribe to that. So without waiting around for much longer, we're going to jump straight into the Fantom token and let's do a deep dive on it. So make sure you stick around. So as you probably see from the thumbnail, I had the $16.24 price for the Fantom token. This is me comparing it to the BNB chain. I'm realistic as well. I wouldn't imagine hitting that price at this current market conditions, but down the road, who knows? We can never really put a price on a coin going forward, because prices can hit for anything and may not reach for it all for the good solid project. So I thought this was just an interesting way to play around with the numbers. It put it in obviously well into the top 10. Even if we put it in the Matic, which is in the top 10, we're still valued at $4 per Fantom token, which is still 8x from its current price. So as I said, Fantom, as I said, trying to do it justice and stuff like that. If we look up here to the Fantom scan basically, and I'm just starting from here. I'm starting with the general info, break it down into technology, and then the bit I'm most interested in myself is obviously the marketing side of things. So you can see here on FTM Scan, and I'm going to compare them with Ethereum and BSC Scan. So on FTM Scan, you can see her daily transactions chart. So at the moment, we're obviously on a decline in transactions after the big pump we had obviously last year, and coming up to the middle of last year, we had decent transactions happening. Now, obviously, we've dropped down, so we're down to just around 400,000 transactions per day. If we compare that to BSC's chain, which is on almost 3 million transactions per day, and obviously, if we compare that again to Ethereum chain, then again, which is on around 1 million, give or take, transactions per day. So obviously we're well behind them two big chains, hence why they're up the top, top 2, top 3 of the chain. So, it's a long way to go for Fantom, but as I said, with the latest news and stuff, I believe that, again, they can reach great heights. Again, not financial advice or in any way, it's just my own views on it. If we look at the daily verified contracts on Ethereum, you can see here we're up to about 700, 600, 700. If we jump onto BNB chain, you can see the verified contracts again is around a similar amount as Ethereum. And then on Fantom, you can see we're getting maybe 20 to 30 verified contracts. The reason why I'm talking about the verified contracts a bit is it's going to play into what their marketing strategy is, based from the information that was provided at the Quantum Miami talk. If you haven't checked it out, make sure I'll try and link it in the description, but make sure you look at checking it out. I think it's valuable information there. So general info obviously on Fantom, the transactions are obviously low, and the amount of contracts that are being verified on the chain are low at the moment. So we're going to jump straight over now to the technology side of things, and it's probably, this summarizes it really good. So I'm going to pronounce it wrong. So Simone Pomposi, sorry, apologize if I pronounce it wrong. He's the CMO of Fantom and the Fantom Foundation. So he summarizes here from the talk, which was done yesterday, and Michael Kong was speaking about the technology side of it. Now, I'm not going to go into massive detail on the technology side because I'm not advanced enough to understand everything that's said. I can kind of break down parts of it. So the big thing that stood out to me obviously was this section here, reducing storage. and reducing storage, and obviously we have the FTM, the Fantom Virtual Machine. So these are going to be the big changes coming to Fantom. And originally I think it was meant to be next year, but now, however, the roadmap states that this could be all done within the end of this year. So this is a big one. Fantom mainnet real data. So again, transactions, you can see here the Fantom, the red line, is obviously with FTM implemented. Now this is done on previous data that's on the chain, so it's not made up data to suit what they're testing. It's actually history. So as Michael says in the actual talk presentation, that this information is, he expects it still to be somewhat similar when it is launched. So you can see here there's up to 500 or 5,000 transactions a second, and then another section down here. So again, making the implementation transaction rate is going to be 8.1 times faster, and this is a major one. 98% less storage is going to take to process it. So in terms of trying to get developers on board and getting mainstream adoption onto it, at the end of the day, people are going to come to the layer ones that are going to be faster and is going to cheaper and for storage costs. So I think that's two of the big things there, I think, straight away. Obviously, again, here's where the roadmap he talks about. So these are all the different elements coming in the roadmap. And again, the Fantom Virtual Machine, the FTM, is going to be potentially a game changer. Now, I couldn't find exactly where the information was, but I don't know whether it was in Austin Clark's YouTube video where he has an interview with the Fantom team, that he talks about, Michael talks about blocks and processing blocks. Most blocks on any blockchain have to be done one after the other. However, I think from what I can make out, Fantom will be able to do it and do multiple blocks at the same time. So this is going to increase, obviously, speeds and stuff. Now, if I'm wrong in this section, let me know in the comments. I'm just trying to put together the data side of it, the technology side of it, as best I can and how I understand it. So, as I said, from a technology point of view, it seems to be going to be leading the way once FTM hits into it. So I think that's going to be obviously a major thing. Again, check out the tweet yourself, go through it, look at the pictures. I'm sure by the time this video comes out, there'll be more up-to-date information on this, and it's well worth it to look at. So now we're going to jump into the section that I'm most interested in myself. Obviously, coming with a marketing background as well, as obviously the marketing side of Fantom. So I suppose to get a better understanding here, I know a Medium article was brought out November last year, by Andre Kroner, probably pronouncing it wrong as well, apologise. Obviously goes through the different amounts of money the Fantom Foundation have to use and going forward. And obviously, at the end of the day, every business is going to need money to have some sort of runway. Most businesses have maybe a 5-10 year runway if possible. I've often seen businesses with much less of a runway in place. However, Fantom didn't decide to have it as a 5 or 10 year. They have a 30-year runway basically left in if everything maintains similar to what it is at the moment. So they have over 450 million Fantom tokens in holdings, 100 million in stable coins, 100 million in crypto assets, 50 million in non-crypto assets, and the salary burn rate is roughly 7 million a year. So pretty much they have 30 years left without having to touch the Fantom tokens that they hold. Again, they have income, obviously revenue, so again comes from different validators, delegators, transaction fees. There's a lot of revenue coming into the platform. So as he says here, Fantom currently earns 10 million a year excluding any capital gains. Cash flow positive. We are still scaling up. So I think that's a good point to have, basically, to base everything off going forward. Financially, they're in a good position. So it's obviously the plan here is to making sure that this money is used good and not just thrown out there into an abyss that basically gets maybe a few users in the short term, and maybe after 6 months everything drops back down. Runway money is after being halved or cut completely in poor management and poor approach towards marketing and what they're wanting to achieve. So I think this is the key kind of foundation point to build from this. So we have lots of different partnerships and happen. So obviously this is the most recent one that I came across, was the January the 24th. Axler brings cross-chain swaps to Fantom. So pretty much Axler is a network that unlocks this potential by connecting 30 chains, including Fantom, to offer cross-chain communication. So it's going to allow to easily swap and cross or bridge over assets onto different chains and to Fantom, which is obviously going to be brilliant. It keeps everything within the Fantom ecosystem and on the Fantom chain. I know I've seen somewhere there that you don't have to worry about the gas on the other side. Like most of the times, you often have to make sure you have gas on the other side once you bridge tokens over. And it's happened to me a few times that I often would bridge a token over and realize I don't have gas on the other side, so I'm still left trying to send it. Whereas from what I can gather, this process gives you a certain amount of gas as well to once you bridge it over. So I think obviously that from a user point of view is going to be brilliant to see and to have. And again, long term makes it much easier for a user to interact on the Fantom ecosystem. So that's a plus. I know again in the chat that they had, that Austin had obviously with Quantum Miami, we're talking to the head of marketing, I think it is Juan Angel. So he obviously brings out a few really interesting points about going forward for marketing and what their approach is. So I think I didn't really understand this. I didn't hear much about this until listening to the actual chat, and I think this got me really excited about Fantom going forward. So if we look here, this was the recent, technically it's a marketing campaign as well that has I think he mentioned that it's coming to a close now anyway, but obviously they launched a 400 million grant program, distributing 35 million plus Fantom to projects innovating on Fantom. The incentive program is evolving, so obviously they worked with Gitcoin to help big and small projects get funding to build on the Fantom chain. So that was just pretty much our one, the first kind of major campaign to help projects build out on Fantom. Obviously it's a really good campaign. It puts money into the right areas of where they're wanting to go. So the next one was obviously this is still the Gitcoin grant one, so it's obviously better support a wider variety of project types, not just focusing on your DeFi protocols, pretty much, game of games, NFTs, education, all that. So again, I know other grants they had were focusing maybe on just DeFi applications and things like that. Now they're opening up for the wider community to build out on, which again I think is an excellent incentive, an excellent plan to get people to build out on it. The next real interesting one is obviously this, which has just gone live there recently, is the Ecosystem Vault, which is now live. So the Ecosystem Vault is an on-chain fund financed by the 10% of the transaction fees of Fantom. So pretty much a percentage of the fees that you use, so whatever you use Fantom for, percentage of that fee is going to be sent to the Ecosystem Vault. The Ecosystem Vault is there to help developers build on Fantom. So most people probably have the idea of a project and have the ability to build a project or a dApp or something like that. The big problem is getting money to actually maintain it, and this is where I think this incentive is an absolutely brilliant incentive to get people to build on Fantom. So we have the vault, which has only been running for, I think it's only a couple of days at the moment, and a percentage of fees go to the vault every day, obviously from every fee, and of each user or each person that's creating some sort of or building pretty much on the Fantom ecosystem has a chance to get a vote approved basically. So obviously you need 55% approval with at least 55% of Fantom stakers in attendance. So obviously you need to have a clear idea of what you're wanting to get and how you plan on managing it, so I would imagine when you're putting in your proposals, clear targets of what you're looking for, how you're going to use the funds, and then obviously you need to pretty much have a business plan ready to kind of showcase if needed. There's no point in putting it up saying you're probably building something cool and you just need money, because you're not going to get the community to vote on. Again, this is going to be something that the community votes on. So if you happen to be building a state-of-the-art, state-of-the-art vault or DEX or something like that brings something completely different to the ecosystem, that's where you're going to get more votes on it. And once you get more votes and approved, you also get the funding for that to help you sustain and build. Again, the ecosystem vault is focusing on developers, not the actual end user. It's the main aim here is developers, and this I think feeds into where Fantom are going to be much different than other platforms. So again, gives you an idea of example how the governance vote works. Excellent opportunity I think for people that are looking to build, and developers maybe if they're considering building it on another chain. Like you have other chains, I won't go into names, but they go up, they're running grand, and then they're offline for hours or could be days, whereas Fantom 99.9% uptime over the last 4 years. So it's obviously, if you're building something, you want to make sure that it's there. There's no point in having a shop and having it closed every couple of days. So if you're thinking of building, I think Fantom at the moment is a great opportunity for anyone that's a developer that's looking to build. So the next big incentive that is coming in, here's the currently the ecosystem vault. So we have nearly 90,000 Fantom already, so that's 42,000 current value has been gathered. Obviously nothing has been paid out yet. It's there to eventually, and it will grow as more transactions happen. This is going to keep growing and growing, and I think it's obviously going to add much more value. So our next big thing pretty much is obviously the gas monetization. Now this is really interesting, the way of doing it. So obviously developer is going to could potentially get help here with the ecosystem vault for funding their building on Fantom, and after they've built their platform, got a bit of funding to help build it, help maintain it, the next step is obviously revenue. So this monetization to successful dApps, it's pretty much very similar to like affiliate marketing and incentives for affiliates. Basically, the way it works is if you build a successful dApp and it's up and running on the Fantom chain, and obviously there's certain criteria that has to be met before this, but you want to successfully apply for this monetization. Basically, it means that a certain percentage of any of the fees that your dApp generates will go directly back to you or the dApp in general. So the more users you can get to use your dApp, the more funds that you will generate from fees. Now, obviously, there's going to be some sort of manipulation done with this, with apps that have pointless transactions or things like that. But again, it's going to come down to users and the ability for users to actually maybe vote things in, decide, look, these are not good enough, or whatever the case may be. But it's just something that it's potentially a way for a developer to build a dApp or build something on Fantom, and then straight away there they have a revenue model, or they have revenue coming in from people using it. So you have exchanges potentially doing this, transaction fees and buying and selling. They could potentially make money from obviously their fees, whatever they have in general, and then if they're part of this program, they'll also make a percentage of it as well. So again, it can reduce overall, if they have extra revenue coming in, this could lead dApps to reduce costs for maybe exchange rates, or they could have free fees, or there's a load of different ways. It gives them opportunities maybe to add new team members to help build out the platform much more. Again, it incentivizes developers to build on the Fantom ecosystem. Obviously, this is pretty much the discussion about the affiliate rewards. It pretty much explains what I was saying. It's obviously the big problem is going to reduce the current burn rate from 20% to 5%, and redirect 15% of the transaction fees to creation of the affiliate rewards. That's probably the biggest, I think, drawback of it, is the burn rate is going to be reduced. Here's pretty much a rough outline of a criteria that you might need to have before you can avail of this affiliate rewards program. Personally, I think this is absolutely brilliant as well, and a big hats off to the team that brought this into real life, basically, use. I think it's an excellent idea. I don't know if Sam is the person that brought it up in general, but either way, it's coming in now. So I think it's another great way to incentivize developers on the Fantom to build on the Fantom ecosystem. So we have another Medium article here from Andre again. It's pretty much summarizing why build on Fantom. So obviously we have the fastest confirmation times, sub 900 milliseconds finality. We have gas monetization, allowing your team to earn revenues, like what I mentioned before. Gas subsidies, allowing users to onboard without needing Fantom. Launch between Q2 and Q3. We have account abstraction, allowing wallets to be owned by normal Web 2 methods. So again, instead of having to have seed phrases or long codes and passwords and things like that, potentially have the access to Web3 programs by usernames, passwords, Face ID, all the things we're used to, without the big long having, as I said, seed phrases and stuff like that. I'm not going into these 2 points because I have no idea what way they mean. As I mentioned before, 4 years with 99.9% uptime. Fantom is the oldest EVM chain after Ethereum. As I mentioned, the 30-year runway, ease of mind and building on a platform. So again, if you're a developer and you're building on a chain, you know that Fantom now have 30 years runway of funding there to help build the chain that you're building your app on, or building whatever you're building on. I think that should be a big thing for you from a business point of view, if for security and stability in the chain you're building on, as opposed to building on other chains that, like as I said, they might have no long-term vision, they have no long-term plans, they have no revenue stream, they have no runway at all for funds. So like, you could build your app on another chain and you do all the hard work, and then the chain goes down, and then you're left either having to move everything over to another chain and rechange everything. So that makes no sense for me, I know it personally. But again, I'm not a developer, I'm not a builder, so I don't know exactly what is involved in all that. So it brings us on to kind of nearly the last section. I know this video is fairly long. I can't do it any justice by making it much shorter, to be honest with you. I'd try and add as many chapter titles in it if I can. So dApps that are already deployed on Fantom. So like, there is some really good platforms here. Like as I said, a WeGoSwap, I made a video on that only a while ago. Well, a couple of months ago, I think it was now. Really good exchange. Very clear UI, stuff like that. Obviously, you have Spooky Swap, which is, I think, pretty much is the main DEX on Fantom, and it's the main one I would use anyway. We obviously have different types of cross-chain bridges, lending and borrowing. Again, most people are probably familiar with them. As I said, we have yield optimizers. Again, really good way of doing it as well. And I'd maybe talk a little bit more about that. But, there's lots of different apps happening on lots of different apps that you can use, and I'm hoping that this list is going to start growing much quicker now, as we have a lot more funding and potentially ways to incentivize developers to come in onto the system. So lots of different things coming. So pretty much from the Austin Clark, the Block Bytes video, the go-to-market strategy, pretty much bullet points and what I gathered from the actual chat itself, was they wanted to attract users, obviously, to have a strong LTV. So obviously that's lifetime value. They want users that are going to stay there for the long term and use the Fantom chain and for all your dApp needs, basically. They're not interested in these one big partnerships that look good in Twitter, social media and all that. And they're not looking for that type of partnership. Partnerships that they're looking for are going to be strong foundation type partnerships that are going to help enhance your experience on the Fantom chain. So you're not going to see Fantom partners with I don't know, Elon Musk or Tesla just for the sake of it, because it adds no value other than the social value for that moment in time. And then obviously after 4 or 5 days, that's gone and the partnership achieves nothing. I much prefer partnerships that, like what they have with Axler for the cross-chain swapping, that's going to add value to the chain and help obviously make things easier for more people to move from the Web 2 to Web 3 aspect of things. I think personally, obviously the FVM, the Fantom Virtual Machine, is going to be a game changer. Obviously increased transaction speeds, reduced costs, reduced storage amounts needed. So, it's going to make it much more attractive to developers. Again, I'd imagine it originally, if it's 98% reduction in storage fees, a developer's going to be happy. It's going to take up less room on whatever server he's building on. Probably the key thing then is the big focus, as you probably know, is not on the actual end user directly. It's more a focus on developers. So at the end of the day, they attract the best developers from the different chains to build their dApps on Fantom. At the end of the day, will attract the users to use these dApps. I know there's different dApps that I use on different chains, and to be honest with you, if they were all on Fantom, I would be on Fantom constantly using it because of the cheaper fees. Everything is quicker, and the Fantom community are just a different feel to it. You know what I mean? They're more of a community within Fantom than say in some other chains. So I think that's a big thing. So quickly, just going to jump into where I have a bit of Fantom and things, my plans with Fantom. So as you know from the videos down here, adding to my vault, I have a vault opened up on, obviously it's on Binance chain for the time being. But in this, I have a position that I'm profiting into the token. So I'm profiting into Fantom as well. And obviously these other chains as well. But as I said, any way that I can accumulate more Fantom, I will be doing it. So this is one of the ways I will accumulate a little bit more Fantom. I also have funds in Beefy Finance that again is compounding in for more Fantom for me. In LPs, I have the same on WeGoSwap, which is doing a similar thing for me. And I also on the F wallet now. This is not the wallet I have connected to it, but I have a decent stack on a F wallet as well, and that's just staking in the validator nodes or delegated to the nodes. So I'm happy with that. I'm getting a small amount, but as I said, it's earning a little bit for me. I don't want to have my bigger bag obviously in LPs and tied up in other things because of the risk to it. But yeah, that's pretty much, as I said, my approach to it with Fantom. How to acquire more, and I'm going to keep acquiring it. And obviously, even if we get to a $4 price point in it, or as I mentioned in the thumbnail, we get to the $16 mark, up close to BNB, which, look, we don't know what can happen. The market can kick off in another month, even more. We could have a major bull season come in another 8, 9, 10 months time. you know, so as I said, accumulating and buying small amounts of it whenever I can is my plan going forward. As I said, there's so much news coming out and so much updates, and obviously, you know, you have to, at the end of the day, put your money where your mouth is. For me personally, and as I said, this is why I'm putting a decent amount behind Fantom. I think myself it's going to be, it potentially could be the big one that could shock us all in the next bull run. So yeah, look, that's pretty much it for today's video. Again, it was a pretty long video, as I said. If you're not following me, make sure you follow me on Twitter. Obviously, join my Telegram group. Like and subscribe to the video, and we'll see how everything goes from there. So thanks very much for taking the time and watching this long video, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you. Bye.